All right, so for the second portion of our class tonight, we are going to be going over annotation. And annotation will cover several things. And so we are going to start with rooms. And then we're also going to go over how to do some keynotes and also how to do dimensioning as well. Now, part of our class tonight will be to do custom text. So Revit always has built-in text. And I'm sorry, what I mean by custom text is just a custom font. Later on, one of the most advanced things that we will do in this semester is how to do title block editing. So this is kind of part 1 of 2 of annotation. And when we do our title block editing, if there's anything else that we need to cover again, we can go ahead and go over it then. I always like to start off this lecture by reminding everybody to make sure that when you start working, your screen scale should be set at the same scale that you're going to be printing off at. So for example, floor plans, we'd never print off at eighth of an inch because it's too small. And you can see that it just makes all of our details and notes far too large. The other part of that is we'd never do them a 1/2 inch. Although our notes and our annotation might look a little bit better, what ends up happening is that's going to be way too big on our plan set. It wouldn't work. So for now, let's keep it at 1/4. And sometimes it might go down to 3/8 or bump up to 3/16, but a good bet is to work at that 1/4 inch, right? The other thing that I'm going to do here is go ahead and change my detail to medium so I can start seeing some of the details in my walls as well, so I can see that too. Okay. So with our annotation, again, the place that I wanted to start is rooms. And the reason why I wanted to start in rooms is that when you label a room in Revit, you're doing so much more than just putting in a room label. And there's several steps to a room label to understand how it's working. So all of us, because we're working basically in the same plan, let's start in this master bedroom kind of in the bottom left-hand corner before we do the rest of our house. Okay? So the most basic thing, if you wanted to put in a room tag, do you guys see under the architecture menu there's something called room? Right? Pretty straightforward. And when I click on it, go ahead and click on it too. The shortcut is RM if you want to do that. Okay. Do you guys see that Revit is kind of showing you guys, okay, this is where the room label is going to go? And it's really just as simple as clicking and placing it. Now, as I'm hovering around, do you see that Revit, it's taking that X, those crosshairs, and it's trying to find the boundaries of the room. And the boundaries of this room are pretty obvious because we have 4 walls that are kind of saying where this space is enclosed. So this one's straightforward. So I can click right here, and it automatically names it room 1. Okay, and I'm just going to leave this one for now. You guys, while we're here, if you guys wanted to name, a couple other rooms, of course you may. Let's just do a few more and then call it good. But let's talk about a few things with our room label before we get too far. I see a few of you guys are still putting in labels. That's just fine. But as soon as you guys get those in, go ahead and hit escape so you're not putting in room labels anymore, and then meet me here. Okay. Caitlin, are you good back there?
Yeah, I just opened an old one.
Okay, you at least have a file to work with? Okay, good. Now, with this first one, what might be a little bit unique about this room label that you may not have seen before?
Square footage.
Square footage, yep. So this is something that Revit has recently updated. Before, the default was just a room label, but now it puts it in with square footage. How do you think you could change that, or how do you think you could see if there's more options? Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Ignore what your teacher's doing. I'll let you guys know. So when you click on the room tag, you can go up to properties and see how this one is room tag with area. If you pull down, there's also room tag or room tag with volume. Okay, so it's up to you. I use both, but typically the only time that I do room tag with square footage, room tag with area, is if a client has said, I want my conference room to be at least 200 square feet. And then I'll show them, okay, this is 200 square feet. Sometimes if you're putting in commercial plans to the city, they need to make sure that a certain room isn't bigger than a specific size, or you'll need 2 exits. So in residential, it's not very common to show this. So if you go back here to architecture and you type in RM or click room, before you even put one in, you can pull down on your properties and do room tag. So now this new one I'm putting in, see how this one doesn't have it? You can use a mix of both in your project. Now help me troubleshoot for just a minute. Right now I have a mix of a room label without the square footage and then a room label with the square footage. If I wanted to only show them without square footage, can you guys tell me, thinking about other things we've done in this semester, how I can easily select all of these room labels? What could I do?
Select one, right click.
Yeah.
Select all instances.
Yep, so I'm going to do all instances in visible view. So there's 1, 2, 3 that have the square footages. And then from here, I can change them to room tag. If you wanted to add the square footage, you could do it the opposite way, where you grab all of these and then you change it to the other one. Okay? So again, tell me the 2 ways to include a room tag. First, where is the room indicator located? What menu? Architecture, good. What is the keyboard shortcut? Good, so if you just wanted to do RM, that will put it in for you. So this is where it starts to get a little bit more complicated. So everybody click on your room 1 label, so in this bedroom, and delete it for me. Go ahead and read that warning. Did everybody kind of get through that? So in a nutshell, was the room deleted?
No.
Just the tag, right? Let's see what they mean by that. Take your cursor and hover it over the space, and eventually, do you see how you can find that room again? Those weird crosshairs? So the room is still there, okay? Now, based on what that warning told you, if we accidentally deleted a room tag, do we need to click on room again to put the tag back in? Let me show you what happens if you do. I'm going to come here, click. Do you see the warning? It's saying, warning, multiple rooms are in the same enclosed region. The correct area and perimeter will be assigned to one room and the others will display redundant room. Okay? So if I click on OK, this is still room 5, or it gave me a room 5 now. I'm going to hit undo, so it gets rid of that. Do you guys see another button that I could click on?
Tag room.
Yeah, tag room. So if I click on tag room, do you see how it remembers that this is room 1? So it's no longer room 5 because it's not that new room, but it's like, oh, this is room 1. I'm going to put the tag back in here. And anywhere I try to put that tag, it's saying room 1. Okay. Let me ask you guys this. If you are creating a room for the very first time, do you use tag room or the room or RM shortcut? RM, good. So that's the first time you're putting it in. If you accidentally delete or lose that tag, is it RM or tag room? Good. can you guys figure out how to completely delete a room? Can you guys try that? So in this room 1, can you see if you can delete everything it takes to get rid of that room? And in fact, I'll show you because you haven't done it before. But first, you would delete the tag. Okay, it's warning you that the tag's gone, but the room is still there. The second part would be to find the enclosing boundaries of that room and delete this. Now the room is completely gone. So here on mine, it's still giving me a warning. A room was deleted from all model views, but still remains in the project. The room can be removed from any schedule or placed back in the model using the room command. So what on earth does that mean? We have this space, but it's telling you it's a room. It's not a room. So in Revit, when you guys create a room, you're not just placing a room tag, but you're telling Revit, let's use this for example. This is Classroom 101. When we create Classroom 101, Revit sees, okay, Classroom 101 is 210 square feet. It has a north wall, an east wall, a south wall, and a west wall. So when you create a schedule, you can say, you know, in this room, this is what this wall is. This is what that wall is. That's what that wall. It knows all of those components of that room. So if you delete the room, it'll also delete the schedule that went with that room. If you never had a schedule, it doesn't matter. But let's say you had even like a paint or a finish schedule. It would delete it from there too, because it's like, oh, now this is just a space. This is no longer Classroom 101. But if you told Classroom 101, if you told Revit that Classroom 101 had painted walls with a wood base, and you deleted that room would also be gone from the schedule. It's just a space now that hasn't necessarily been assigned yet. So do you see the difference between creating a room and a room label? Okay. So right now, we're really just creating room labels, but one of the last things we do in our semester is we learn how to create schedules, and our schedules tie in directly with our rooms. So those two have everything to do with one another. So they're really doing a lot more. Let's go back and do this example one more time. So was everybody able to completely delete the room okay? Yeah? Let's type in RM again, and let's see what room it gives us now. Mine is up to room 5. How about you guys? Did you all get room 5? If you did more or less tags, it could be room 3 or room 7. The point is it's no longer room 1 because it wasn't the first one, because we deleted that first one. Got it? Let's practice something else. Let's call this master bedroom. And let's give it, so typically, whenever you're working on a residential or commercial project, it's not common for people to name their rooms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But on the first level, every room starts with like 100. So it's 100, 101, 102. So when you go to the second floor, it's 200, 201, 202. So that way the room and the room name kind of correspond. I'm going to call this master bedroom 100. A little bit more unique, right? First, let's see if you guys can easily move the label. Let's say you're moving in a new piece of furniture and you want to move it. You guys able to move it okay? Okay. And if you ever need to move it outside of the room, what happens? See how it's mad at you? The room tag is outside of its room. Enable leader or move the tag within the room. So that should be easy to do. And even here, let me show you guys one more time. If I pull it out, I can click move to room and it moves it back into the room without me doing anything. But what if I really need to get it out of this room? Like for example, when I do this toilet room, it's not going to be anything but a room label, right? When I have my room label selected, do you guys see anything here that will help me? I hear you guys clicking on it. Leader line, so you can click on it here or here. But when you turn that on, it allows you to move it outside of the room. because now it knows, okay, here's a leader that's taking me back in here. Do you guys see that? So go ahead and try to move your room label outside of the room. And I'll show you one more time. When you click on the room label, turn on leader here or here. It's the same thing. And it will allow you to move it outside of the room. Which part? The leader? Okay, so let's click on your room tag one more time. And is leader on? Okay, now try to drag it out and it should work for you.
It just turns it into question marks.
Okay, so I'm going to turn my leader off just in case. Okay, my leader is off. So let me catch up with you guys. I'm going to click on this. And before even turning leader on, I'm going to pull it out. Does it look like this right now? Read me the warning in the lower right-hand corner. Same thing? Okay. Click on move to room for me. Let's get it back in there. Okay. And now just make sure you're clicked on it again. And now turn on leader for me. And using that same drag point, try to pull it out of its room. Do you still get a question mark? Weird. You know, I think you can go.
I think the key is that drag line.
Yeah. But let me pause and come around to see what's going on. It's happened? If it does, you'll know what's going on. So this is really subtle. Okay, so I'm in my master bedroom. I turn on leader because I know I want to move it. Now, we're used to this being the drag point, right? But this is actually the drag point for our leader. I don't even know if I can grab it. Pretend I grabbed it from there because that's what a couple other students did. The reason why it's bad is because now my drag point is outside of the room. So essentially my leader went outside of the parameter. But if I move it back to the room, now this is in here, where you really want to move your room label from is from that four-sided arrow. And you should be able to move this too. But remember, if you take this and move it outside the room, it gets mad at you again. So how should you, if you wanted to move your actual room label, what do you click on? Yep, the four-sided arrow. If you wanted to adjust your leader line, you would click on the drag point that we're used to clicking on. Okay. Did that answer your question, both of you guys? Okay, good. Now let's try this one more time. I know it sounds weird. Click on master bedroom and just delete that tag. Okay. Now that we have more of a unique name, as soon as you get rid of it, how do you bring it back in? Good. Tag room, RT. I've actually never seen that before. Okay, so RM and RT. I'm going to try RT. And do you see how it remembered, oh, this is the master bedroom and it's number 100? So it's really not making up. Like it didn't go back to room number 1 and start it over. It really remembers its parameters that are there. All right, let me ask you a couple more questions. Are room tags just room tags? Because it's just a label that's going in a room. Yeah, it's not. It's doing a lot more. It's calculating the volume. It's calculating the square footage. Room labels, remember when I was doing my voguing up here to this classroom? Room labels or room tags are used to create what as well? Schedules. So in the future, this master bedroom will translate into a schedule, a finish schedule, a wall finish schedule. I mean, you could make it as complex as you wanted it to. Do you guys feel comfortable inserting room labels and naming your rooms? Yeah. So right now, if we were to, there's one other thing that I wanted to show you guys with this. What would happen if we were to try to do living, dining, and kitchen? Do you think you'd get mad at us? Okay. So we know it's going to get mad at us. In an effort to save time, look at your room menu. What do you see that can help us? Good, room separator. So with a room separation line, essentially, if you click on it, I'm going to do it on my screen really quick, and then you guys can do it on your own. I can even undo. But on a room separator, first let me do it without. So if I do RM, I'm going to come over here, and then here and here. It's like, nope, I don't like it. I'm going to ignore you, and I'm going to add all three. And see how these two are on top of each other? So 102, you can see the bounding box, right? And then 101, exact same bounding box. If you were to do a schedule, it would say redundant room. I've never done it this way before. I'm going to separate it after the fact. So see how I have a new line here? Room 102 now knows where to go, and room 101 does. Before I add the next room, I probably wouldn't chop them up this way, but just for our example, I'm going to add one more room separation line. I'm going to separate living from dining room, and I'm going to do it at a crazy angle. Okay, I won't do it that crazy. I'll draw it in somewhat like this. Okay. I can click on this, do create similar. No, I can't, sorry. Because it's creating the tag, it's not creating the room. So I don't have a room here to tag. And there's my 103. All right, so you guys can decide if you want to do your room separation lines first or your room tags first, either way. But for your room separator, you really just click. Your sketch or modify menu comes up, and you can just click and drag. Okay, and then when you're done, you hit just escape a couple times, and that's really all there is to it. There's no green check mark or red X button like some of our other stuff. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to get these three rooms separated, or two, however you want to do it. Caitlin just asked, is there a way to hide your room separation lines? And absolutely you can hide them, because with these rooms in particular, these look like a threshold right now, and those are crazy thresholds. I don't think you'd want 3 floor separations that look like that. So this might be a little bit abstract, but let me try. Earlier in our class, we went to a certain menu that let us show and hide certain things. Do you guys remember what that menu was called? Good, VV. Now this one is going to be in a slightly different category. So meet me in VV. So in this particular one, we went to imported categories before, but this time we are going to go to lines, and let's expand that. Okay, so again, under model categories, we have lines. I expanded it, and do you guys see the one that we're looking for? Yep, room separation. So if you deselect that and hit apply, just take a look to make sure it worked. It just turns it off of your screen. So they're still there, but the visibility is now off. So now, just to let you guys know, if you were to draw another room separator, I'm going to draw one. Let's say I didn't have this hallway threshold and I needed to separate all of this from my hallway. If I go to draw this, it'll just warn me none of the created elements are visible in floor plan, first floor view. You may want to check the active view, its parameters, or visibility settings. So that's it. We can't see it because I changed its visibility settings. But can you see here? It definitely worked. It's definitely there because it chopped off room 4. Okay. So tell me again, when would you use a room separator?
We have an open floor plan and you need to separate spaces.
Yeah, if you just need to distinguish spaces within one big open space. Just because it's an open space doesn't mean it's all the same. So, good. Do you guys feel pretty comfortable with room labels and the many things it can do? Okay. So now that we've gotten room labels done, let's hop into Keynotes and essentially text formatting, okay? So for this next bit, we are going to be in the Annotate menu. And under Annotate, do you see where it says Text? That's mainly where we're going to be. And the reason why that is, we've been here before, we've tagged stuff, but do you see that there is an actual Keynote button? Okay. Now, if you work in an office, your office might actually use the Keynotes. So Keynotes, if I click on this and I come here and I click on the tab, let me see what comes up with it. Oh, let me just place it. Do you see how it wants me to pick what spec section my tub is in? So this is really the professional way of doing it. So I would come here into plumbing, and I should know where plumbing is. So under spec section, plumbing is division 2200, and then this is under plumbing fixtures, and then this would be, oh, this isn't a sink. This would be a tub. Are tubs still in here? Yep, tub. Or a bathtub. And then I click on OK. So this is section 2240.00.d2. That's mainly if you are working in an office. And then what this does is it generates the spec section, and you can even include all of the Kohler info there. I'm sure you do this with your tile all the time, whether it's exterior, interior, all those finishes. But we won't do that here in this class. It's not necessarily a fundamental. When you go out into the workforce and they use a special keynote like this, they should train you guys on how they do their keynotes. So for this class, I'm going to go ahead and delete that keynote. We're going to use it just using annotation, which would be text. Okay? So what I'm about to show you works for keynotes and regular text. Okay? The only difference between keynotes and regular text is if you add a leader or you don't use a leader. That's really the only difference. So right now, look at my screen and even look at your screen. So go ahead and go into text with me. What type of text are we about to put in? Or what's the font style? Arial, right? Do you guys see on mine it says Arial? And what size is it? 3/32. Yep. If I pull down, I've got quarter, eighth, and 3/32. Now let me see what 3/32 gets me. So I'm going to come, we were in the master bedroom, so let me stay here. I'm going to go ahead and note up the bed. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to write West Elm bed. Okay. So I think this is a good size for a note, right? But if I made it 1/4 inch, see how that's way too big? That's no good. 1/8 inch, that's still too big. The biggest text on your plan should be your room label. Everything else should be smaller than your room label. So quick question, was everybody able to at least type a note, West Elm bed? Okay. Do you have an arrow on it yet, or what's known as a leader? Do you guys have a leader? If you don't have a leader, do you know how to add one? Come back to your buttons up here. Do you see these plus signs? So if I click on this, it adds a left leader. Pretty straightforward, right? I'm going to delete this. I'm going to do it one more time. I could have gone into text and just started with the leader here. So see how I started with just plain no leader text? If I went down here, a 2 segment, that means my first click is pointing to the bed, and then my second click is the actual leader part, and I could have typed in West Elm bed. And it kind of automatically formats it for me. A little bit less of a pain than what you may have used in CAD if you did these in CAD before. So do me a favor, just to make sure that you're comfortable with this, go ahead and add at least 2 or 3 more notes. So I've got a bed, I've also got like a dresser or a credenza right here, I've got a side table. Go ahead and put in a few more leaders, just to make sure you're comfortable with it. And then I'll talk about formatting them a little bit more. Things are starting to get messy on my plan, y'all. You too?
Yes.
Yep. Any general questions about inserting the notes? A little crowded, right? But it's doing what you want it to do? Okay. All right, so with our notes, just to kind of keep my thoughts organized, I'm going to show you a couple other things. So this is with notes and text. So first I'm going to show you guys how to change the font. And then I will also show you guys how to make an outline style. For Keynotes. And let me actually start with this outline style for Keynotes. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. So when you're working on a project, if you find that your notes are getting really detailed, almost paragraph style, it might be time to switch over to a different type of note so that you could just do a number 1 or a number 2 and then somewhere else do a text box that kind of explains what number 1 or number 2 is. So in essence, an actual keyed note. This is what we would call reference noting. So we point to something and we reference something else. So right now I'm referencing a West Elm bed. A keyed note is when you say number 1 and then you have a key somewhere and then the key tells you what the number 1 is. Got it? Okay. So right now on my West Elm bed, I could double click on it and just write a number 1. Whoops. And that works. But typically on a keyed note, it looks like this. It looks something like that. So it just has the outline around it. So for this one, okay, pretend this is a wall with me for a moment. If you wanted to change the style of a wall, would you know how to do that? Okay, for 30 seconds, pretend it's a wall and try to put an outline around it. And then in 30 seconds, I'm going to come back and show you guys how to do it. Just give me 30 seconds. Does anybody want more than 30 seconds? Maybe. I feel like I should play the Jeopardy music. Was it this class I kept playing Devo last time? Oh, you're so lucky. Just kidding. Okay, let me hop into the second part. So if I wanted to put an outline around this, remember, I'm just pretending it's a wall because I know you guys know how to do this. You just don't know you know how to do it. So I click on it, and then where do I go from here? Yep, properties. And what's the first thing I want to look at? Yeah, edit type. So if I really just wanted to kind of rush through it, I could just click on show border and hit apply. And there's my border on my number 1, right? But where else did it put it? Did it also put it on my non-keyed notes? Okay, let me back up a little bit. I'm going to do Control Z. I'm going to click on this again and click on edit type. Pretend it's a wall. What's the first thing I should do? Duplicate. And I'm just going to call this 330 seconds Arial. What do they call it here? Outline? Is that what they called it? Border. Arial border. Show border, okay. And now it's on this one, but my others didn't get affected. So now I've got the 330 seconds Arial plain, and then I've got that same thing with the border. So do you see how it's nice to distinguish the two? So if somewhere you had text that didn't need a border, it doesn't randomly get one because it was in that same family. So just like a wall, make sure you duplicate it before you edit it. Okay. Now I personally think that the fonts that come out of, like, not just the fonts, everything out of the package in Revit I think looks really good. In CAD, I think you have to change everything. The fonts are ugly, the leaders are ugly, you just have to spend a lot of time. This, if you gave this to your client, wonderful. I think it looks fine. But we all want to do some editing, and we're going to do some of it tonight, but when we get into the title block, I'll show you more complicated things that you can start to edit. If you guys have a favorite font, would you guys be able to use your knowledge without me telling you anything and create a new text style with your favorite font maybe? So instead of me ignoring you guys for 30 seconds, let me start with, Raquel, do you mind if I start with you? And again, you might not have any idea what you're doing, but let's see if we might be able to find it. So what I'm asking you again is, let's say you want to create a custom font style that's not Arial. I love Century Gothic. I would do Century Gothic. You could do whatever. How or where would you start?
Let's see. I guess I would highlight the text.
Okay, good. I do that too.
I would go to edit type.
Good. And now I'm going to have Caitlin take over. Perfect. Caitlin, where would you go? Good. And then here, we don't know if we're going to have Arial next, right? So here, I could just write the name of my company. So I go by acronym design. So I could call this 330 seconds acronym. So that way it just means this is the company standard. Forget what font it is, this is my company standard. If you guys know you love Century Gothic, great. Papyrus, I'll smack you across the face. Just kidding, I can't do that. That was a joke. Use Papyrus as much as you want. Okay, and then Brooke, where would we go after that?
Under text font.
Yeah. And honest to goodness, this is the only thing that I really ever change. You know what? Just to piss off the world, I have Papyrus. We're going to do it, guys. That's really the only thing that I would change is the font style. Oh, I'm so taking a screenshot of this and sending it home. This will be funny. Okay. But that's how you guys create a custom font style. And if you wanted to create it in the different sizes, just keep duplicating the different sizes and then you can make it for all of those different sizes. You could make a bold one, you could make an italic one. So I think I'm so pleased that just 5 weeks into Revit, you guys are already seeing these things intuitively. I really didn't do that much teaching tonight. I just kind of directed you towards where the answer would be. But I love that you guys are kind of figuring it out on your own already at this point. So really, once you guys have your different text styles, you can use these to make a text box to add really long notes, whatever they might be. You can turn on the leaders to start putting in keynotes, but that's really what you would need to do text boxes and keynotes. Those are the two things that we would need for those right there. With your dimensioning, just while we're here, linear dimension style 3/32 Arial. I know you guys know how to change that. So if I already have a Papyrus Keynote, if I edited type, I would duplicate it. Again, I'm going to go back to where I don't know it. I'm going to call this acronym. And guys, search with me. Somewhere in here, there's got to be a font, right? Did I pass it?
Yeah, it's right in the middle.
There we go. There's my gorgeous papyrus. There you go. Now, if I wanted to change all of my existing dimensions to be papyrus, could you guys walk me through that? Desheen, I think it's your turn.
You can right click
Yep.
one,
Uh-huh.
select all instances,
Yep.
and then go to edit type, or the one setting that you've already created.
Mm-hmm. See all these different kinds of dimensions we can use? I'm going to go to the most beautiful one in the world, the papyrus, and they all change. Now with the dimensions, so these are just updating the dimension style. Once we have a floor plan, maybe this one, I actually want to do it with your midterm project. I'm actually going to go through a review on how and what you should be dimensioning, because I have found that Jerry and I teach it a little bit differently, and then even Dustin and Jerry taught it a little bit differently. So I will be showing you guys the National CAD standard, plus a couple other office standards, and then what I want to see for this class. So we're going to go over the whole gamut and why we would do it, and then we're going to go over how we're going to do it for this particular class. But as far as getting a dimensions custom style down, that's it for tonight. Okay. I feel like I need to do the survey again, because we're still only at 8:30 and we went through 2 classes that typically take me a week.